Hi everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of me telling you ghost stories from Long Island, New York, which is my hometown. Home region, I guess. It's not a town, it's an island, technically. I'm just gonna get started. These are not my stories. I found these on a website. It's really cool. I'll link it down below. I don't think I told any of these. If I have, I apologize, but I really don't think I did. I also only skimmed through these, so I don't really know what's going to happen in these stories. So it'll be my first reaction to hearing them. So that's kind of cool. I'm just going to jump right into it because I've got quite a few short stories here. Okay, the first one is called Phantom Girlfriend. Years ago, I was sleeping over a girlfriend's house. She was in one room and I was in another. In the middle of the night, I woke up and saw her standing over me. My skin is crawling as I write this. I wasn't really sure it was her because the room was very dark and all I could see was the outline of a figure that resembled her. I said her name and there was no response. I called her name again. Still no response. But there was definitely someone or something standing next to my bed. I turned on the light as quickly as I could and no one was there. I thought I could have been dreaming, so I turned out the light and went back to sleep. An hour later, I woke up and there it was again. I tried calling her name and again got no response. At this point, I was really scared. I turned on the light and left it on the rest of the night. The next morning, I told my ghastly tale at the breakfast table, and guess what? I wasn't the only one to have seen a ghost in that haunted Long Island house. Needless to say, I never slept there again. I want to go to this house. I could see how someone could be like, oh, that's like sleep paralysis, but I don't know. I feel like unless you really experience it for yourself, you can't really judge other people's experiences. And the fact that they woke up multiple times, I don't know if that's how sleep paralysis works. Like you wake up multiple times and could have an episode. So that is spooky. All right, next. This one is called Mysterious House by Alyssa from Smithtown, New York. This Long Island ghost story was told to me by my father while we sat around a campfire in Montauk. Ugh, love Montauk. It was a hot summer day. His friend John was moving into what was an abandoned house in Farmingville. My dad and a few other guys went to help him settle his furniture and belongings. While they were setting up, my dad heard a noise like a click. It was the heater. Who turned the heater on, he asked. Everybody heard the noise, but no one had turned it on. It was summer. You didn't need a heater. So my dad went down to the cellar. Nope, the burner wasn't on. Strange, he could have sworn he heard it. Later, there was a knock on the door. One of the guys answered it and nobody was there. About 3 minutes later, the loud, demanding knock was heard again. One of the guys opened the door again and nobody was there. He looked around. In the bushes, down the driveway, in the street, nobody was there. The second he shut the door, 3 loud booms. The knock was louder this time. He swung the door open as fast as he can, and yep, you guessed it, nobody was there. Later in the kitchen, they were storing things in the drawers and cabinets. In one of the drawers, my dad found a photo of an ugly-looking lady that was ripped in half. That night, John woke up from the bed to go to the bathroom. As he was walking down the hallway, he saw in the mirror facing the staircase a ghostly-looking woman walking up the stairs. That morning, he called everyone and said, I'm moving out. That day, everybody came back to help him pack up. When they were finished and my dad was about to drive home, he saw the same ugly-looking lady in the photo walking down the street. Woo! That's freaky. See, like, there's stuff like that. It's like, can't be explained. That's why I believe in the paranormal, because we're just stupid not to. I love stories like this. Next one. The next one's called The Long Beach Kitty Wars. This is by Grace, who's from Huntington. When I was first married in 1975, we lived in an apartment in Long Beach on Long Island. We worked long hours and got home late and were asleep by 9 o'clock during the work week. The first time we were alerted to something strange, we were home and both my husband and I were reading and the cats were sleeping. We heard a banging sound which seemed to be coming from an antique dresser. We opened each drawer and found nothing. Looked in the kitchen, found nothing, and searched behind and under the piece and finding nothing. One morning I woke up and a heavy antique rocking chair was laying on its side. There was no way the cats could have accomplished that. I had a cement penguin garden statue that was regularly overturned. We got a letter from the landlord saying that after midnight it sounded to the people who lived below us that we were bowling. We were asleep by 9 o'clock, so we did not have a clue as to what they could have been talking about, so we bought a rug. We still got complaints. Then I found out I was pregnant and everything went nuts. There were cold spots in the house, the cats started fighting for no reason, going so crazy I had to take a few days off my job. I did some mirror work to try and see who was haunting this home. It was a young woman of color who looked stricken by tragedy. Soon after that, I started dreaming about her and the new baby that was coming. She was awaiting the birth. Needless to say, we moved, but both myself and my now ex-husband knew that place was haunted. See, I was trying to figure out if it was the house that was haunted or like, since they have antique furniture, like was it the furniture that was haunted? Because I know some spirits, they trap themselves in objects, like not intentionally, but they like attach themselves to objects. So I wonder if that was the case in this one. Okay. The next one is Ghost in Port Washington by James B. Turner, New York, New York. I was home from college and alone in the family house. The house had seen its share of sorrow with both my parents passing at young ages after illnesses. We would also find Indian artifacts in the backyard as kids, arrowheads and paint pots. The house was surrounded by woods near Long Island Sound. We had a caretaker staying at the house as the house was on the market. The caretaker did not like staying there. She heard sounds and felt like she was being watched all the time. Chandeliers would move, just a big empty house. I would often experience unexplained cold spells. We would hear sounds upstairs if we sat in the family room. You always felt some kind of presence. I was in my room with my dog and we heard footsteps coming up the stairs. My dog started to growl and I grabbed a stickball bat. The footsteps continued and something went past my door. I could barely look up, almost frozen with fear. No one else in this house but me, my dog, and this entity coming up the stairs and now in the hall. At this point, my dog was growling loudly. We both inched to the door and stood in the hallway. 15 feet away, there was a mist in the hall. I had to rub my eyes to make sure I was not seeing things. My dog was scared, as was I. The mist moved slightly, a white mist, and I could see through parts. Then it started to swirl and move through the wall, disappearing. No way I was going to spend the night at that house. I grabbed the dog and fled to my car, spending only one more night in that house before it was sold. See, if I ever saw something like that would stick with me for life. Like, I just couldn't even. Okay, next one is called Haunted Apartment in Manhattan. So technically not Long Island, but if you're from Long Island, you probably have gone to Manhattan many times in your life, like I have. So, yeah. This one is by Anonymous. About 15 years ago, I was working as a real estate agent in Manhattan. I had a new listing for an empty apartment. Since I was early for my appointment, I figured I would go into the apartment to use the bathroom before meeting the clients. As I'm in the bathroom, I get 3 nasty knocks at the bathroom door. It scared me half to death because I knew no one could have been in the apartment. I was so scared to open the bathroom door because I figured someone had broken in. Anyway, I opened the door and no one was there. I still felt a chill, but ignored it and went outside to meet the clients. As I'm showing the apartment to the clients, the lady says to me, "I know this apartment. This is where a guy killed himself a few weeks ago." I freaked out. I just wanted to get out of there as quick as possible. I went home and told my old-fashioned, no-nonsense parents the story, and they said to me, that's the 3 knocks of death. I didn't even know the meaning of the 3 knocks. I'm convinced that it was the dead man's spirit. It was an angry knocking sound, and who knows, maybe he was angry that someone was taking his apartment. What is the 3 knocks of death? That is so scary. I need to look this up right now. The 3 knocks of death is a superstitious belief that originated in medieval European folklore. It is said to represent a supernatural warning or an omen of impending death. The belief holds that 3 distinct knocks or rapping sounds often heard at night signify that someone is about to die. The exact origin is unclear, but the custom may have emerged from old traditions of knocking on doors to announce a death in the community. Over time, it became interpreted as a supernatural phenomenon rather than a practical notification. Ooh, that is freaky. So instead of warning, I guess it came after. That's freaky. Okay, next, Jealous Ghost. This one's by Marika from Ridge. My friend was doing some minor renovations to his home one afternoon and had to go to a local home improvement store. Whoa, let me read that again. I did not articulate that correctly. My friend was doing some minor renovations to his home one afternoon and had to go to a local home improvement store to get some materials. I decided to help him out with minor things around the house, like sweeping, doing the dishes, etc. As I was cleaning, I noticed a beautiful bush with pink flowers outside. I went outside and took a small bunch of the branches and put them in a small vase that was on top of the kitchen cabinets. I continued my chores and heard a loud noise like a thud, almost like a body falling down on the wood floor. I ignored it and continued with the dishes. Why would you ignore that? Then I heard the noise again. I decided to look around this time. I looked out the window, the backyard, the front yard, but there was nothing around. It was not a car door slam noise, but it was coming from inside the house. I ignored it again and continued with the dishwashing. I tried to ignore my fear now and decided it was just my imagination. The noise did not stop, and then it was really loud like someone was being thrown against the wall. I narrowed the noise down to the bedroom. The door was shut. I was afraid to open it, and I was more afraid of not opening it. I had to know. I had to see. I opened the door, expecting to see something, but there was nothing there. I laughed it off and went back to the dishes. I heard the noise again and I said to myself, no, this is not going to get the best of me. I'm not going to be afraid. As I was washing the dishes, I sensed something in back of me. I turned, which felt like slow motion, and on my left side was a figure of an old woman just standing there. Her hair was dark and she was looking down with her hair over her face. It was long and dark. She was dressed in a white old-fashioned nightgown, long sleeves, long in length and up to her neck. I didn't say anything, but I left out of the house. The water was left running in the sink. As I am completely out of the house, I can't leave since my keys and cell phone are on the kitchen counter. I was so afraid to go back inside, but needed at least one of those two items. Either I can call my friend to come back quickly or grab my keys and leave in my car. I decided to go quickly in the house and grab my things as fast as I can, hoping I wouldn't get grabbed by this thing and get thrown across the room. I was seriously thinking that this was going to happen. I got my phone and my keys and sent a text to my friend stating, there's something angry inside your house. He came back and saw how frightened I was. I explained what happened and he saw the flowers in the vase. He was stunned because he said that bush was planted there a long time ago and was there when he had moved in. The vase I had put the flowers into was also in the house before he moved in. The woman was probably jealous of my presence in her kitchen. He didn't think I was crazy because he explained to me that any female that has entered or stayed around him in that house had some kind of experience with the supernatural. He stated he doesn't usually tell anyone about this thing until it happens. Oh my goodness, a jealous ghost. That's so funny. She said, that's my man. That's my flower pot and those are my flowers. Get out. Same girl. I would be the same way. I'm so petty. That would be me as a ghost. Okay, next. This one's called A Spiritual Connection on Long Island. Also, I apologize. I feel like my posture is absolutely horrific this whole video. I'm going to sit like this. This one's called A Spiritual Connection on Long Island by Erin from Massapequa. Ever since I was a small child, I've been rather sensitive to energies and have had many experiences with seeing entities. I usually saw them in the house I grew up in, where I still live in Massapequa on Long Island. I could relay several stories, but I recently learned something that literally brought me to tears, and I feel this is the one I should share. Most of the time when I was a kid, I would see a person once, and then I wouldn't see them again, as if they had just been passing through. However, there was one particular spirit that I saw frequently. I was never a great sleeper, so several times a week I would crawl into my parents' bed, and often I saw a man standing there at the foot of the bed in a business suit holding a briefcase. Unlike many of the other entities I saw, this man never tried to communicate or even moved much. He just stood there. I was afraid of him, but only because I knew he was a ghost, not because he seemed particularly bad-natured. I was a child with an active imagination, but I knew that I was not imagining this man. In fact, I did imagine another being in the room, the Cookie Man, who was made of a shadow cast by a lamp on the wall. I would ask the Cookie Man to keep the man with the briefcase away, but I knew the Cookie Man was invented and the businessman wasn't. Over time, I got older and I stopped seeing spirits, at least as often as I once did. I haven't seen the man with the briefcase in almost 20 years. Last year, my boyfriend and I were driving home from the movies after seeing Paranormal Activity 2. We were swapping personal ghost stories, and I have many, most of which are much more interesting than the one I just told. Suddenly he says, "Have I ever told you about the man with the briefcase?" My jaw dropped. I shouted at him, "Have I ever told you about the man with the briefcase?" He asked me what I meant, and I told him the story above. He looked at me incredulously. He then explained that once when he was a young kid, he woke up in the middle of the night to find the exact man I described standing at the foot of his bed. The man didn't speak or move, just stood there before disappearing. My boyfriend grew up a half an hour away from me in Oceanside. I was so shocked and freaked out that I actually started to cry. I really wonder who this man was, if anyone else has seen him, and if some way he brought my boyfriend and me together roughly 12 years after appearing to both of us as children. Wow, that's like weirdly heartwarming. Like, I thought that too. Like, I really believe in soulmate connections, and I wonder if their souls like attracted the same spirit, or if the spirit like attracted their souls or something like that. That's really interesting to think about. Wow, that's like beautiful, but also scary, obviously, because, you know, who is that man? I like that a lot, actually. The next one is They Looked Like Real People by Judy. I told a story to my in-laws about a puzzling encounter I had years before with a young boy near the football field at Seaman's Neck Park in Seaford on Long Island. To my amazement, my father-in-law then confided that he had once had a similar experience in another field at the same park. First, my experience. I was walking on a path along the football field at the south end of the park where I noticed a child standing alone in the grass. There were people around, but he was off by himself. We didn't ever interact, but there was something compelling about this boy. I can't put my finger on it exactly, but it made me take notice. It struck me that he was underdressed for the weather, as it was a blustery fall day, but he wore no coat. I glanced back as I passed him, concerned that he may have lost his parents, but he had vanished into thin air. He was nowhere in the area. Do ghosts look like real people? My father-in-law played on an adult softball team at the same park. One day he realized that he had lost a piece of jewelry and remembered that he had removed his sweater on the football field. Thinking that it may have fallen off then, he went back to retrace his steps after the game had ended. He hadn't noticed anything else in the area, but as he was looking on the field, a woman suddenly approached him to ask what he was doing. He explained the situation to her, and she replied, "Don't worry, you'll find it." He did, but as he turned around to tell her, "Here it is," she was gone. She had vanished into thin air. What are the chances that two real people suddenly appear and then just as suddenly disappear in the same park? I've been down there many times since, but I've never had another weird encounter. I feel like I see people disappear all the time. I don't have like too many paranormal experiences, but I have had experiences where people just like disappear into thin air, and it's really one of those things where it's like, is this paranormal, or like, is my brain tricking me, or did they really just like disappear that quickly? Like, it just doesn't make any sense, and like, it's so frustrating to never know. Like, you just never know. And that's why I choose to believe in the paranormal, because if not, then I will drive myself crazy trying to find an explanation for things. And some things just don't need explaining. Like that. 2 more. This one's called Still Waiting for Whaling Ships to Come In, by Cheryl Hall from Chicago, Illinois. Having found no public parking in downtown Sag Harbor on a busy Saturday in July, my husband and I settled for parallel parking along Howard Street, which is about 4 blocks south from the town center. After locking the car, we strolled up Main Street toward town, aiming to find a table for 2 at any restaurant with an opening. We were on the block between Garden and Spring Streets when something caught my eye in a side bay window of a rustic home on Main Street. In that window, I glanced up to see the seated profile of a very tiny young woman dressed in Victorian clothing. A perfectly tailored high-collared lacy shirt, her hair pulled up in a bun, daintily holding a teacup to her lips. Though it was a movement that initially drew my eye to the window, I noticed that this woman was sitting absolutely erect and unmoving, so much so that I began to think she was a very clever work of statuary posed, especially in that window, for passersby such as myself. I continued walking, but before the architecture of the house's porch and front rooms could swallow her up, I kept my eye on her, waiting to see if she might move. She didn't. She remained absolutely still during my entire passing of her, which maybe lasted about 2 minutes. Who holds a teacups to their lips that long? I asked myself. Nobody does. I decided chalking her up to being a sculpture. Yet as I walked away, I felt something chilling about her. The window she had sat in had been extremely brightly lit by the evening sun. Yet she was extremely dark gray and shadowy, with no visible details in her hair, face, or clothing. No matter how hard I squinted, all I could see was the clear outline of her, yet I could perceive that she was 3-dimensional. Whatever material the artist had used to construct her, I was curious to find out, and all throughout dinner I couldn't help but look forward to the stroll back to the car to inspect this intriguing work of art further. But when we reached the same house again, the window was empty. I was sure I had seen a ghost. That's freaky. The whole like grayness of her appearance really got me. Like, that is chilling. All right, the last one's called The Red Orb by Margaret. I was about 11 years old when this happened. It was around 8:30 p.m. and my grandmother, who I had lived with, told me that I had to go to bed early because I had school the next day. I was not tired, so I was giving her a hard time. But instead of being an immature little brat, I just gave up and went upstairs to my room anyway. There was no point in fighting with her. I was watching TV and laying in bed when I heard someone walking up the stairs. I quickly shut the TV off so I didn't get in trouble for being up too late. I shut it off and stared into the dark hallway when I saw my grandmother walking up the stairs. Well, so I thought it was her. When she finally reached the top of the stairs, I walked to the doorway of my bedroom and called for her. She stopped and stared at me without saying a word, and I kept calling her name, but she kept ignoring me. I walked into the hallway and watched her approach my great-grandmother's room. My great-grandmother died a few months prior, and my grandmother didn't really go into or even look at her room. It upset her. I was a little confused because I didn't know why she'd be going in there so late. As I saw her standing at my great-grandmother's doorway, my grandmother turned her head, stared at me for a second or two, turned back and walked into the room. But when she walked into the room, she disappeared into a red orb. I got really scared and ran back into my room and hid under my covers. As I was crying and screaming for my grandmother, she yelled back, "What do you need, Margaret? Come downstairs. I'm in the den." When I heard her say that, I got really scared and told her nothing was wrong. But something was. She was downstairs the whole entire time and didn't come upstairs once. I still don't know what came upstairs that night and why it appeared to be her. This particular incident never happened again, but many strange things have occurred after. Thank you for reading my experience. If you have any questions, please ask. I'll be happy to answer. And if you want, you can share your experiences with me too. I'd like to hear them. Someone commented, "That was such a great story, but did you ever think that that thing that walked up your stairs was your great-grandmother?" Well, whatever it was, just a great story. I also thought that maybe it was her great-grandmother who was visiting, and it just looked like her grandmother because they're related, or if it was one of those, not a skinwalker, like how spirits like pretend to be someone that you know. Like if it was like that kind of situation, or like a demon, that's scary to think about. But anyways, that's freaky. I'm freaked out now. I love reading these stories, especially being that I'm from Long Island. It's really interesting because I know Long Island is a very haunted place. It's full of history. Like, it's just been around for forever. Native American history, there's a lot here. Burial grounds are built on top of like pretty much everywhere here. I think like everywhere on Long Island is haunted. The Fire Island Lighthouse is haunted. I really want to do a video there one day. Just going there, maybe telling stories and exploring. If you guys want to see that, please let me know, because that sounds like something I would love to do. And just visiting some haunted locations on Long Island, I would love to do. I'm not like a ghost hunter, but I think it'd be interesting to go see what's going on there and do a little hunting. Not ghost hunting, but just take you along for the journey, get some spooky vibes. But yeah, if you don't follow my Instagram, please follow my Instagram and my TikTok. They're both linked down below. I have 2 TikToks. I post on healthier.heather a lot. That's like my health TikTok. But I do also post on Instagram a lot. And obviously, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Mwah.